Hello, this is Danny Raymond, the voice behind Ray's Guide. 10 years is a long time. Things that you thought were certain weren't. Changes you never expected to happen do. The way you think things are isn't. And certain things you would attain, you can't. Time doesn't let you see what you will accomplish in 10 years, nor will it allow you to go back and unsay things you shouldn't have said. Anyone who says that they have never had to break a promise is a liar. But the internet, on the other hand, does not have that kind of subtlety. Going back 10 years and everything still sounds as certain as it felt 10 years ago, which is convenient if you're looking to shout about broken promises and how the game will never be finished, whether it be for worldview validation or clicks. But neither can you say that nothing said a decade ago matters, that things said have an expiration date. How do you square that? How do you separate what from 10 years ago should be taken seriously, which what is just senseless pounding on the table to make an issue of the fact that the world changes in unpredictable ways? Or maybe we want to demand that everything turn out in the game exactly as we expected, specifically because nothing else in our life does. I can't go through every promise made about the game in one video, so I'm instead going to give categories and examples as a starting point for everyone's discussion. And I'm sure many of you are going to disagree because I'm saying things you don't want to hear. But that is what I do a lot of. So, Category 1, things rendered irrelevant by progress. Let me start with the simple, private servers. There used to be a day when you could configure a high-end computer, put a Linux distro on it, download the server program, and get a business class package from your ISP with a fixed IP address, publish a DNS record for it, and voila, private server. But Star Citizen is not one program running on one computer. It is utilizing a whole suite of programs running on a whole suite of various AWS services. It would have to be extensively re-engineered to run outside of the service environment of AWS. You can't create your own AWS data center and some system in your garage. You would have to contract and manage the entire identical service set from AWS that CIG has. I shudder at the cost and complexity and doubt even the availability to an individual user. Now, what could happen in the future would be that CIG could offer, for a price reflecting their cost, setting up a private shard and giving you a limited configurability of your private shard. But an old-timey private server on some system that you own yourself? Not going to happen. Ever. The next category are promises that were never possible, and complaining about them or spending money on them will never change them from impossible to possible. And the one example that I want to use for this is the single global shard. Because as long as there are reaction time critical elements in Star Citizen, dogfighting and shootouts, even mining, then the speed of light ping penalty for being on the opposite side of the world from the server is going to immediately have 2/3 of the world demanding a shard that doesn't discriminate against them. And no degree of backer money can make the speed of light faster or the size of the Earth smaller. I've seen some suggestions that they spread the planets around the world, say have Pyro running on one continent, Stanton on the other, etc. But that would just change the discrimination argument into who got the better planets and who. It doesn't really solve the problem. The third category is a strange one, that is things that might have already been met, just depending on how you look at them. My example here is the stretch goal of there being a limited number of places that you can fight for control over against other players. They were originally presented in lore as being gold horizon stations. Now, we already have places that we can fight for control over. Jumptown 2, for example, and also the 3.18 security post Korea. And I'm willing to guess that since the retake location is now a mission module, we will be seeing more of them. So, is this stretch goal met? Or is it not met until they actually implemented them as Gold Horizon space stations? Good question, and a pretty good test of whether you tend towards being a white knight or a refundian as far as this project is concerned. The fourth category extends to promises where the whole underlying presumption of the promise has been transformed. And this is the realm of the 100-star systems. In one respect, we already have 100-star systems. Look at the web version of the star map, and there they are, 100-star systems with overview specifications of the planets and moons, each one of them. And years ago, that really wasn't much more than what we were expecting to get, just a handful of static landing zones in each one of those. So you needed 100 such limited places to get a big explorable area. But now look at the scope and scale of just Stanton. millions of kilometers of land space, rivers, oceans, caves, multiple outposts, ruins, and such. 100 systems all built out to the scope and detail of Stanton would indeed take many decades. And honestly, for many of these systems, there is no point at all in expecting that to happen. Is there any point at all, for example, detailing out any of the Vandal systems to a Stanton level of detail? I doubt any player is ever going to be able to do more than a quick look and run mission into the Vandal systems. So the real question is, how many of these 100 star systems in lore do we have to build out to a Stanton level of detail, which is the detail we have come to both like and get used to? Let's call it being Stantonized, before we all accept that this universe is more than big enough to keep us happy for conceivable future. Unless, of course, you just want to forever be complaining about unmet promises. Which brings me to the fifth, and likely most controversial category: promises that should have never been regarded as promises at all. Having followed this game for a decade, I've seen a lot about how game development happens. It starts with an idea. Ideas become design documents. Design documents become specifications. Specifications become sprints to achieve a particular tier of features of implementation, and a whole lot of things can change along the way. For example, this shows the prospector drilling a hole in the ground. These videos show prospectors drilling holes in the ground many times from different angles. How many backers paid for the prospector based on the expectation that it would drill holes in the ground? And nobody cares about that because mining gameplay is fine, even far better the way it turned out. But I guess you could say it is a broken promise that the prospector does not mine by drilling holes in the ground. If that is your goal, you can demand that it was an unmet promise rather than an idea that has evolved. But early on, there were a lot of ideas and a lot of questions and a lot of Q&As, questions at shows, questions in videos, even a whole regularly scheduled dedicated set of questions and answered called 10 for the Chairman. Questions that were answered not from specifications or design documents, but pretty much from what seemed to Chris Roberts to be a good idea at the time. But they sounded like promises rather than ideas, and when they are coming from the horse's mouth, how do you really know the difference? 10 for the Chairman. 10 new promises every week. Or maybe no promises at all. That disclosure we click by every time we make a transaction, the whole reason why this is called a pledge for a project, the reason why it may never be called released because so many things were said to be tied to that word, is to make a point that everything is subject to change. And from a certain vantage, nothing at all is a promise. But I can't be satisfied with that as a conclusion. In fact, I can't really be satisfied with it at all. It just is way too ambiguous to be satisfactory at all. But I could say that also about my whole life. Now for an update on our giveaways, first we have the 10,000 subscriber giveaway for the LTI Hull C, the Colossal Cargo Container Carrying Craft, leaving away when the sea goes live, and the big annual ship giveaway for this winner's choice of the Galaxy Complete, the massive modular mining moving medical machine, or the Banu Big Box Bargain Bazaar, known as the Merchantman. One entry per video for both giveaways. Just be a member and be entered automatically, or otherwise be a subscriber and comment somehow with the secret word. And the secret word for this video is the word I coined for having a star system be fully realized. Fly safe, keep it real, and I'll see you in the verse. This is Danny Raymond for Ray's Guide.